short period of time and coming here to deliver this speech for us. Please welcome Mr. Mahendra Amarasuriya, our chief guest, to deliver the speech, Challenge to Change Banking and Finance Industry, where he will practice this in Lionism as well. Thank you.
Mr. Daya Hettiarachchi, CEO, Chairman and CEO of OpenArc, and the management team of OpenArc. First of all, let me thank you for having invited me to participate in this seminar organized mainly for your clients and prospective clients. I must say that I accepted your invitation in a weak moment because I have been traveling so much that I hardly had time to think about what to speak this morning. Be that as it may, I am glad that I am here because all of us, I'm sure, are very proud that a Sri Lankan-born company with Sri Lankans at its head have made such great progress in 15 years of operations, not only in Sri Lanka, but overseas. I think Mr. Hettiarachchi 15 years ago would have been a pioneer in open platform systems when they were not thought to be very reliable and acceptable in most parts of the world. The fact that he has been able to establish his company and competitively obtain assignments all over the world and from most of the important companies in Sri Lanka gives an indication of his commitment and the depth of knowledge and research that OpenArc has been engaged in. I am also very pleased as a Sri Lankan to find such a large team of young Sri Lankans who have been trained by OpenArc. I asked Mr. Hettiarachchi just a little while ago whether because Mr. Hettiarachchi is also a teacher with his own school, and therefore I'm told that many of his brightest stars have been through the OpenArc school and been trained. That is also a very significant difference to some of the companies probably who have a problem in recruiting from Sri Lanka sufficiently well-trained and well-motivated young people. So he has not only developed and grown his business, but also made it possible for these young people to get involved in a very creative and very useful occupation through which they are really adding value to many companies in Sri Lanka, especially in the banking and finance industry. I am also very proud to say that Mr. Hettiarachchi is a member of the Lions organization. In fact, the district governor of one of our districts, 306A2, who is seated here, Mr. Kamal Senuratne, has appointed him in charge of ICT for the Lions. Now you might wonder what ICT has to do with Lions, but ICT is involved in every possible area in the world. And Lions being one of the largest and the most effective service organization is now using ICT as far as possible in order to make their communications more effective and of course to be more productive and to reduce costs. So most of our communications now are through ICT, and in fact clubs are now about 70% of the Lions clubs in the world, 45,000 clubs, 46,000, they have information, their membership statistics direct through the website of Lions Clubs International. Hettiarachchi also made a contribution to the progress and development of the use of ICT in the Lions organization. I just like to have a token presentation to Mr. Hettiarachchi, a pin for my ear, where the theme is Challenge to Change, and with the Sri Lankan lion right in the middle of the pin. So may I request Mr. Hettiarachchi to come up, please? This is just a token presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me get down to my address. I mean, people here know much, much more about information communication technology and its application in the banking and financial industry than I do. So my presentation cannot be a technical one because it would really fall short of your expectations. It is more a strategic presentation on a general theme of the need to change in every organization in the world. That's why even in the Lions organization, I decided that my theme for the year is Challenge to Change. Why did I do so? Because although we are the most effective and the largest service organization, in the last 10 years, we find that our membership is declining globally and that young people are not joining in the numbers that we want them to join. So something is missing in our organization, and that is why I have been calling this theme, expressing it all over the world, stressing on the need to change the organization in keeping with the developments and changes that are taking place in the 21st century of mankind. Yes, I think you all know that change is inevitable. Only thing that does not change is change, someone said. But we also know that though change has taken place right throughout centuries, in recent times, the rate of change or the pace of change has accelerated beyond even our comprehension. In fact, very few people can even anticipate what changes will take place in the near future, leave alone the far future. I will just quote you a story or an example which may be out of date, but it indicates how the change has taken place in the history of mankind. This, the journalists I'm told in 1960s, out of date. Yes, they coined this, they call this information explosion, the rate of change, the change that is taking place. Because information available was exploding. They say if mankind had a certain amount of knowledge available in the year zero, that it took 1,750 years, or by 1750, for that change to double itself. But then, by 1900, just 150 years later, the knowledge available in 1750 doubled again. Then, how fast it grows in 1900, 150 years later, the knowledge available to mankind in year zero doubled. By 1950, in just 50 years, the knowledge available in 1900 doubled. And by 1960, just 10 years, the knowledge available in 1950 doubled. So that is an indication of the rate of change. And when this information explosion and this story or this illustration took place in 1967, they said mankind or all over the world, there was so much of research being done that it was sufficient to fill in 1 week 24 volumes of Encyclopedia Britannica. Now that was the rate at which change was taking place. Ironically, or would say acceptably, all of you probably know that Encyclopedia Britannica is no longer printed in the hard copy form, because by the time it's printed and completed, it'll be out of date. And it's now on the website, and there are the whole team of people literally updating it every day. So this is the rate at which change is now taking place. The famous American futurologist Alvin Toffler, when he described mankind of 3 waves, the agricultural wave, the industrial wave, and he called the final wave during his time in 90s when he wrote his book, the third wave. He called it the third wave. Of course, we know what the third wave is. Third wave is obviously information wave. And we are now in the midst of the information communication revolution in the history of mankind. Information is now power, not only for political leaders, not only for, as you probably heard recently, McLaren's were fined $100 million US dollars for stealing information or getting information from Ferrari, who were their greatest competitors. They literally stole the information from Ferrari because Ferrari were doing things that McLarens were not capable of doing. And the motor car and the formula industry, the regulatory authority, decided to fine them $100 million and to penalize them by not allowing them to take part in the Formula races this year, Formula One. So that shows how much of power is there with information. Political leaders use this power in various ways. Industrial espionage takes place in order to get information from others. But other people, you and I probably who are ethical, will use the information in whatever way possible. And the greatest tool in modern information technology for information, of course, is the internet. In fact, when I asked Daya how he keeps updated with modern technology in the computer field, first he said through the internet, and then he said he visits other countries regularly. So information and internet are probably very closely tied up. In fact, children now probably have more information than their parents, because anytime they want information, they don't come to the parents, they browse the internet and they can get the information. So they are probably more knowledgeable, more informed than you are. And of course, communication. Those days, people were talking in terms of political ideology of the haves and the have-nots, the poor people and the rich people. But now literally the world is talking of the knows and know-nots, those who know how to use a computer effectively and those who don't know. Because definitely there will be a big gap between those who know and those who don't know. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka entered into this information wave rather late, but I believe we are catching up, and people like Mr. Hettiarachchi in the private sector, there are many others I must admit, are involved in providing the knowledge that makes people know a computer and therefore have the advantage. Let's digress for a moment. I am quoting from a book called Big Idea, which I picked up. It's not available in Sri Lanka, in England. This is an interesting book called The Big Idea. And it says at the back cover, I don't want to tell all the companies, what do these organizations have in common? Amazon, Apple, I'll leave out some, Coca-Cola, Dell, Guardian, Hewlett-Packard, McKinsey, Microsoft, Nike, Nokia, Orange, Sony, Southwest Airlines. A big idea. This talks about the big ideas that made companies real winners in the past and will make them winners in the future. Just quoting from the company, it says, on the outskirts of a northern industrial city in Britain stands a huge grey high-tech shed. They call it a shed. Of course, these are out of date now. So I may be talking something out of date because every day things are getting out of date. This was published in 2001. It looks like a small airport terminal, but there is no name on it. It's anonymous and slightly forbidding. Around the site, there is a tall fence. You can drive up to it. There's no people around. You press a button, and then you are asked to come in. Inside the church, there's a different world. It is a vast space populated by 1,000 or more people working at desks. Most of them are busy on the phone. It is all people. There is no cash. There are no walls. There are no checks, not even checks. Yet, it is a bank. Now, this is supposed to be, I don't know whether it's still in existence, called the First Direct Bank. At that time, the world's pioneer in telephone banking. First Direct matters. It is a small bank with around 1 million customers, but it is emblematic of a much larger social shift. Behind First Direct, there is a compelling story, and even more exclusive question. The compelling story is about what the bank has achieved. 10 years ago, First Direct had a simple but at that time revolutionary idea. That time, now it's not so. Banking to suit the customer. A bank that was open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. A bank that if it made a mistake would sort the thing out quickly and even compensate you without you having to ask for compensation. A bank that because it had no branches was much cheaper to run. Everything was at the center. A bank that would not charge you for running your account. And above all, a bank that says that the heart of banking isn't check processing or bullion handling or loan approving. It is managing relationships with customers. I think heart of any business, especially marketing, is managing relationships with customers. But now, even First Bank at that time in 2001 faces an explosive question. If customers, they have got used to the excellent customer relationship, but they want something more. Customers now are so sophisticated. There are so many people throwing ideas at them. I have read somewhere else a book where they talk of not the satisfied customer or the delighted customer, but the never satisfied customer. Now customers are so sophisticated, even in a small developing country like Sri Lanka, that they are never satisfied with what you give them. They always want something more. Like Oliver Twist, they are asking for more all the time. So they have this question they are facing, what next? It's a question that sooner or later every other organization will have to confront. Once you have achieved high quality in your products or excellent standing in your customer service, where do you go next? And it's more than just a question. It is the whole climate. It's a predominant mood, they say, in the 21st century. It is coming now to Sri Lanka, but at the beginning of the 21st century, with the information revolution making inroads, customers are getting more, being offered more, and yet asking for more. And they are impatient with the status quo. They want to pursue the next level. And that's how big ideas have made companies completely change. New ideas, big ideas, and of course you have heard of the expression, thinking out of the box. And now some people say, if you create your own new box, don't even think out of the box. Think completely new. And it is those people, like the people here, I believe, especially your programmers, who can by being creative, by being innovative, by changing, sometimes even ahead of what the customer really needs, that makes your company or any company that much more competitive. In fact, probably if you look at the mobile phone technology, they are giving you more than what you really need. Nokia is always putting out a new solution every 6 months. They make their own mobile phone obsolete. Japanese were famous for that. They would make their own electronics inventions obsolete by giving something new to the customer. So there is no question that so sooner or later, I think every organization, although you might feel that you have reached a level of excellence, excellence is never achievable. There is always something more to achieve. You can remember the famous book In Search of Excellence, where they discuss 4 or 5 companies, IBM being one, most excellent companies in the world at that time. Within 5 years, all those companies fell down from grace. I think it's easiest to fall from grace when you're at the top, because you become complacent, you're the market leader, It's difficult to reach the top, but it's more difficult to maintain that position. Because then you're getting in good revenues, your company is having a good bottom line, and you become complacent. You don't realize that there's a need to change all the time in order to meet the changing environment and the challenge of change. This Sir John Burroughs of British BP is supposed to have stated, uh, there's never been so much emotion in business. Now we always talk of business people being objective and hard-headed and so on. But really, now business has become new ideas, more emotional, coming out with new things that will really hit the market, will emotionally drive customers. He says, we cannot predict the future now. If it's based on economic logic, we can. But it is not. It is to a great extent based on emotional aspects. And therefore, it's almost impossible to predict the future. Then you might ask me, what do we do if you can't predict the future? Some take the path by saying, you create your own future. But we are a small country, but in our own country, probably, your company or any company can certainly create its own future. Of course, its own future now is based a great deal, whether it be banking or financial services, on information, communication, technology. Because that is the tool that makes it possible for you to be far more creative, far more innovative, far more information is available to you, and therefore you can make a definite contribution towards probably creating your own future for your own company. Let me quote again, this is from, I can't remember who the author is. It says, change is exhilarating, annoying, challenging, and threatening. Yes, change threatens many people. I'm not trying to try to make age difference. I'm not young, but older you get, the more threatened you feel by change. That is why you will find that most of the creative years are in the 20s and 30s. By the time you become 40s and over, your creative sphere is more or less over. You're settled down, you're complacent. So it can be, it's challenging, but it can be threatening. Sometimes you love it. Young people probably love change. Sometimes you're uncomfortable with it. You resist it, endure it, fear it, cause and hope for it. Above all, you always need it. Any society, any company, any institution has to face the challenge of change. And the way you can best face is to try to predict the change and be innovative in dealing with what you change. I can recall, I don't want to mention, at Commercial Bank, when we were discussing, by that time I must say, late Mr. Enu Jawad had taken a mammoth step in banking technology in Sri Lanka. He had invested at that time 50 million rupees, I believe, on computerizing Sampath Bank. And he had put out automatic teller machines, which were not very familiar in this country, although everywhere in every corner of the rest of the world, there were ATMs.